Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new series here on the channel. We're back in Planet Coaster and starting a brand new park. This is going to be a medieval themed park. Now I'm sure this has been done before many times in the game, but I just wanted to do my own take on it and just have fun, really be creative with the theming and just build something completely fantasy, rather than worrying too much about realism, and really try and use some of the different building sets in the game that I've never used before. So in this one, obviously I'm working on the entrance building, which has three parts to it. Two of these sort of classic Bavarian style buildings from the World's Fair DLC, and a castle arch sort of entrance in the middle that you walk through. There will be a lot of sort of terrain based work in the park, with lots of like medieval buildings up on hills and various different lakes and rivers and all that sort of thing. I wanted to focus a lot on that sort of very scenic sort of look. I feel like this would be based somewhere in Europe probably, you know, somewhere which is nicely landscaped with all the different sort of scenery elements I was talking about there. It's a nice waterfalls in and all that type of thing. Also, it's going to be quite a small park, this one. I didn't want to do anything too big because I want it to run quite nicely as well, and at the same time I want to make things really detailed with the various buildings and rides that go in the park. So I'll probably have 2 or 3 coasters. Definitely want to make some sort of dark ride. Might do a couple of dark rides, but I definitely want some sort of boat ride in there. We'll probably go for a big sort of fantasy-ish castle in the middle. Well, I want it to be fantasy themed. I also want it to be believable, sort of medieval, you know, classic theming. And you know, we've got some good building sets in the game which I can do that with. To start with here then, like I say, with the first building, it's from the World's Fair kit, the World's Fair set rather, and I think I paused here from building it to try and work out where some of the pathwork would go, because I wanted the entrance plaza to build up sort of the terrain so that you're looking up towards the castle as you come in from the entrance. And yeah, I think I revisit that afterwards. I decided to have a sort of separate like pavement path just made out of the tiles, which you can see I've put in there. Overall this building came together really nicely actually. I think those overhanging sort of window pieces work really well when you look at the sort of classic architecture that we're going for, you know, the medieval type architecture. I struggled quite a bit with finding a decent roof to put on this building, because I still find the roofs a bit limited in the game, but that might just be because I haven't played about with them that much. Obviously my experience of this game probably isn't that much. I've probably played it for about, I don't know, 100 hours or less, which sounds like a long time, but some people have been playing this for years. I only got the game about 6 months ago. So now that I've completed my first park, I really want to try something much more heavily detailed with the theming on this, and like I say, more fantasy, so I could sort of go a bit crazy with it, you know, do my own thing. I'm not, like I say, I'm not worried about the realism at all. Like I'm not going to do any sort of backstage things or anything like that, because it's just not what I feel like doing for this park really. So as you can see, the buildings come together quite nicely there with the layered roof on. Takes a bit of playing about with there to get how I wanted. I think it looks good with that small spire as well on the back section of the sticky out bit. to use the correct terminology. Yeah, I'm really happy with how this turned out in the end. I added quite a lot of little details onto this already, like the pillars holding up the front section. Added several different parts to them just to give a bit more depth to it, really. And then these bits needed finishing off with the borders. I think I played about a bit with the normal wooden ones before I realised that there are actually some Bavarian pillars that fit in exactly the same as the other ones that you can use. So obviously I went back and changed that. And while I finish this part of the build, I'm going to leave you with a bit of music and a time lapse, and come back a bit later and talk about what we're doing. Okay, so at this point I decided to get the pathing and the entrance sort of terrain exactly how I wanted it, which took quite a bit of playing about with. If you played this game, you know how difficult the paths are to get right in it. But we got there in the end. Just took a bit of trial and error really, and just seeing how many different levels I wanted, because there's no point in having too much pathing for the sake of it. But when you get an idea in your head, sometimes it's sort of difficult to pull it off exactly how you imagined it in the game. But yeah, using the terrain tool and the paths, we get something that looks quite nice in the end. And then obviously completing it with all the foliage and rock work and that sort of thing. So yeah, slightly off topic, the name for the park we're going for is Avalon Acres. Now, before I was thinking of calling it Fort something or other, but I had a quick look on YouTube. I see someone else has already done one with Fort in the name, so I didn't want to go copying that. Avalon, I think, is some sort of ancient empire. I'm not too sure on that, but it's just two words that went together quite nicely for a name for a park, really, with the medieval theme. I don't think the name is that important, but I didn't want to just start the series without giving it a good name. So like you can see, carrying on here with some of the rock work, yeah, and building it up really. We had some water in here as well, just to make it look a bit nicer really, so you sort of walk past the water as you go in. It's a sort of main entrance plaza. And I do think just small things like a bit of terrain modification and putting paths on different heights really does help to make things look a bit more interesting and realistic. And it's one of the things that you should try and take advantage of in this game. Like the last park I did was pretty much just all built on flat land with a lake in the middle, and I didn't want to do this here. I wanted some really nice, interesting terrain variation with the terraforming, and I've already done quite a bit inside the park, where the park's going to be, and basically I will go back to that at some point, but it's going to be, like I said earlier, very varied with different hills, valleys, rivers and lakes and that sort of thing, and then with lots of classic medieval architecture everywhere around the park. So yeah, I'm really excited about how it's going to come together actually, and I think this will be a much better project than my last one, because really I was still learning the game and getting to grips with how it works then, whereas now I've got an idea of what I'm actually doing with it. And yeah, I've always liked this trick in all these sort of games where you put rock work in and then put some sort of shrubbery and bushes, small bits of foliage in with the rocks. Just think it gives that really nice natural look to it. And obviously just to the left of the first building there, I've put some of the foliage in. We're going for the sort of alpine trees and that type of thing, which I think fits the theme quite well. So yeah, carrying on from this, I start work on the actual sort of castle arch sort of building. It's sort of part of a castle. This does look very generic, but it sort of fits in pretty much how I envisioned it, how I wanted it to look in the first place. I try several different types of brick here before I settle on the ones that I actually use for it. Like you can see there, I've taken it all out and put different ones in. There's quite a lot of different options for sort of brickwork and castle type buildings in the game, which is going to be very useful for getting some variety in this park as well, because we don't want all the buildings looking the same. So that will be quite helpful in the future of the project. And yeah, just a bit in the middle there, I think it was a bit too low, so I raised it up a bit. Obviously this building needs to be the tallest of the three buildings at the entrance to make you know that it's prominent, that is the actual entrance itself. And the others are almost like supporting buildings, just to make the whole area look a lot more interesting. And yeah, this castle entrance is simple, but it does look really nice, I think, in the end. We had a couple of small little details to it as well, to give it that medieval feel, but you know, you can, without me even saying a word, you can tell exactly what sort of theme this park is going for. I think there is a couple of parks in Europe with this style entrance. I don't want to say the names of them because I might be wrong on that, but yeah, I think there are a couple of parks that use a sort of a castle style entrance building. Not necessarily medieval theme parks, they might just have like a small themed area to that sort of thing, but yeah, I think it's a really cool look for an entrance building. But obviously the whole park's going to be themed like this, so like I say, I need to keep thinking of ways to make it varied. Okay then, so before I go on to building the third and final building, I'll leave you with some music and some more time lapse. Enjoy. Okay, so like you can see here, we've nearly finished with the entrance buildings now. Onto the third and final building, which I've completed most of the build. There wasn't really an awful lot to say about it because it is pretty similar to the first one, with the overhanging sort of window balcony type things. I made this one look a bit more interesting though, give it a proper spire, give it a bit more variation on the building style, like you've got the front bit sticking out a bit further and all that. With the spire, to start with, I was using these classic bricks, and then I found that there is a building piece that looks exactly like how I want it to, which is the sort of detailed side bricks that you get on these spires that you'll see me do a lot in Parkitect. And yeah, this piece looked a lot better for what I was going for. And yeah, the flower boxes that I put onto this one were a lot more sort of custom made. I just used a balcony piece, window balcony sort of piece, and then put the flowers and bushes in separately, give them a different colour. And yeah, I think overall it turned out really nice. I wanted the two buildings either side to be quite similar, but still have their differences, like obviously a different sort of colour scheme, slightly different design, but still using the Bavarian pieces so that they've got some sort of similarities to each other. And overall it come together pretty well. Other than that, really, it's just bits of foliage here and there, some planters, some little details like you see the flags on top of the castle. And overall, I'm really happy with how the entrance buildings come together. This is actually my favourite thing I built in the game, so I hope that we can continue the park to look as good as this. So that's it then for today's episode. I'll leave you with a cinematic overview. Thank you for watching and see you later.